If you've ever commuted on a tram in Melbourne, specifically if you always travel on a certain line, you'll notice that you always get the same tram types each time. Then when you get into, say, the city, you see other lines operating with completely different trams. I remember going into the city for the first time as a kid and being completely perplexed when I saw a Z class for the first time, as I thought that B classes were the only trams in existence. This was back when they operated the entirety of Route 86. Now, naturally, this brings about the question, why do certain trams only operate on certain lines? Well, you've come to the right place to find out. Now, to add a bit of context, Melbourne's tram network has always been operated in a very segregated way. Trams and drivers are based at specific depots, and those depots only operate specific routes. There are currently 8 depots situated around Melbourne, with one more set to commence operation in 2026. These depots are Brunswick, which doubles as the northern terminus of Route 6, Camberwell, which is located near Riversdale Road on Route 70 and 75 near Camberwell Junction, Essendon, which is on Mount Alexander Road and Route 59, Glenhuntly, located just off Glenhuntly Road on Route 67, Kew, located on the corner of Barkers Road and High Street on Route 109, Malvern, located near Glenferrie Road on Route 16, Maidstone, which is near High Point Shopping Centre on Route 82, Preston, which is on the corner of St George's Road and Miller Street on Route 11, and Southbank, located next to Route 109 and the former Port Melbourne Railway line near Montague Street. The tram fleet consists of 8 tram types, 4 high floor models and 4 modern low floor models, with a 5th low floor type set to enter service in 2026. These tram types are known as classes and are classified based on a letter system introduced by the MNMTB in 1921, which has remained unchanged to this day. The 8 types of Melbourne tram are, from oldest to newest, the W class, which were built between 1923 and 1956 by the Melbourne and Metropolitan Tramways Board. Most of the W class were withdrawn from service in the 1990s, but 53 of them were retained as heritage trams to operate a brand new City Circle tourist route, which commenced operation in 1994. After they were completely withdrawn from normal route service in the early 2010s, the remaining Ws still in service were completely rebuilt into W8 class trams by the Bendigo Tramways in the early 2010s and early 2020s to keep them up to modern standards. The W8s are now the only W class subtype still operating on the network. Next up, we have the Z3, A and B2 class, which are all high floor trams built in the late 20th century by everyone's favourite Aussie rolling stock manufacturer, Commonwealth Engineering, ComEng, at their factory in Dandenong South. The Z3s were built between 1979 and 1983 and are the only Z-class subtype still in service, since the last of the Z1s and Z2s were withdrawn in 2016. The A-class were built between 1984 and 1987 and consist of 2 subtypes which are pretty much identical from a visual standpoint, although there are some slight mechanical differences between them. Then we have the B-class, which were built between 1984 and 1994. This tram class consisted of 2 subtypes. The B1 class were 2 prototype trams built in 1984 and 1985 in anticipation of the conversion of the Port Melbourne and St Kilda railway lines to light rail. Meanwhile, the B2 class were the main production version and were built between 1987 and 1994, with the last of these trams being built by ABB, which had taken over ComEng in 1990. The B2 class are the only B-class subtypes still in service, since the 2 B1s were withdrawn in early 2018. Now we have the low floor trams, the C, D and E class, and also the G class, which is set to enter service sometime this year. The C class are Alstom Citadis trams built in La Rochelle, France, and are divided into 2 very distinct subtypes, each with very different origin stories. The C1s entered service in 2001 and 2002 and were Melbourne's first low-floor trams. They entered service during the early privatisation era, known as the Split, and were ordered by Yarra Trams for their half of the network. The C2s, on the other hand, weren't initially built for Melbourne, but were instead ordered for use in Mulhouse, France, which had opened a new build tram network in 2006. In 2008, 5 trams, which were a surplus to Mulhouse's needs, were temporarily leased to Melbourne to fill a tram shortage. This was only intended to be temporary, but we later realised we needed them permanently, and they were formally purchased by the state government in 2013. These trams first entered Melbourne service in an all-yellow livery, which is the livery from Mulhouse, and they were nicknamed Bumblebees as a result. When the trams were formally purchased, they were repainted in the PTV livery, which they still wear today. Well, mostly. These trams are usually painted with all-over advertising. Then we have the D-Class, which are Siemens Combino trams built between 2002 and 2004 in Krefeld, Germany, and there are 2 subtypes, the D1 class, which are a 3-section version, and the D2s, which are a 5-section version. These trams began entering service in 2002, about a year after the C-Class, and were ordered by Yarra Tram's competitor, M-Tram, for their half of the network. Then we have the E-Class, which were built by Bombardier, later taken over by Alstom, at their factory in Dandenong South between 2013 and 2021. And yes, that's the same Dandenong South factory once owned by Comenge, where the Z, A and B class were built. The E-Class have 2 distinct subtypes, due to a change in the cab design made halfway through the order in 2015, and those differences can still be seen today. The first 50 trams, numbered 6001 to 6050, are E1s, while the remaining 50, 6051 to 6100, are E2s. There are also some E1s which have had one of their cabs replaced with an E2 cab due to accident damage, which creates the unusual instance of a tram with an E1 cab on one end and an E2 cab on the other, and these trams are often referred to as cat-dog cars, taking its name from a children's sitcom which ran from 1998 to 2005. Finally, we have the G-Class, which are currently being built by Alstom in Dandenong South. The first 2 have already been delivered and are currently undergoing testing, running out of Maidstone depot, and they are set to begin taking passengers sometime this year. So, those are the 9 different tram types we have here in Melbourne, and these tram types are divided up and dispersed to each of the, currently, 8 depots across the network. However, the different tram types are not dispersed evenly to every depot, and none of the depots have every tram type. So, let's have a look at which tram classes operate which routes. Brunswick Depot operates routes 1 and 19, as well as half of route 6, providing a mix of Zs and Bs to routes 1 and 6, and a mix of Bs and D2s to route 19. Route 6 also gets some D2s from Brunswick as well. Camberwell Depot operates routes 70 and 75 with an entirely high floor fleet consisting of the A and B2 class. While both types do regularly operate on both routes, the mix on Route 75 is weighted much more heavily towards the B class, although there are exceptions to that which I'll touch on later. Essendon Depot operates routes 57, 59 and 82, as well as half of Route 58. Routes 57 and 82 are operated entirely using the Z3 class, while routes 58 and 59 are run using B2 class trams, with some Zs provided during peak hour. Once the G-Class start entering service this year, they will begin to enter the mix on routes 57, 59 and 82, progressively replacing the Zs that currently operate from Essendon and also displacing some of the Bs to other depots to replace Z3 and A-Class trams. It is also expected that routes 57, 59 and 82 will have all or part of their operation moved to Maidstone when it becomes operational. Glenhuntly Depot is pretty simple, operating routes 3, 64 and 67 using an entirely high floor fleet consisting of the Z3 and B2 class. Q operates routes 48, 78 and 109 and houses the entirety of the C1 class fleet. All 3 routes are run using the A class, while routes 48 and 109 also get the C1 class. Malvern operates routes 5, 16 and 72, as well as the other half of route 6, and houses the entirety of the D1 class fleet. These routes are provided with a mixture of Z3 and D1 class trams, and for route 6, these are in addition to the Bs, Zs and D2s from Brunswick. Preston operates routes 11 and 86, as well as the other half of route 96, using an entirely low-floor fleet consisting only of the E-class, which are the only tram class based there. In the past, Bs operated these routes as well, but the last of them were cascaded to other parts of the network in 2019 as more E-class trams came online. Finally, Southbank operates routes 12, 30, 35, and the other halves of routes 58 and 96. It is also home to all of the 5 C2 class trams and the entirety of the W8 class fleet. The depot runs routes 30, 96 and 58 using the E-class, with the 96 also getting exclusive use of the C2 class fleet. Route 12 is run using the A-class, and finally Route 35, the City Circle, gets exclusive use of the Heritage W8 class fleet. During special events, it is common to see trams like the E-class in places where they don't usually run. The most common example is during the Australian Open every January, where the E-class are rostered onto Route 70 to run shuttle services from Flinders Street West to Melbourne Park. During certain events at the Melbourne Showgrounds, such as the Royal Melbourne Show, the Bs, and occasionally the Es, are rostered onto Route 57, operating shuttle services from the city to the showgrounds. However, it is unclear whether the Es will continue to run these shuttles once the G-Class enter service. The Es are also used to run extra services to the Formula 1 Grand Prix on routes 12 and 96. However, on Route 96, this isn't as unusual as the Es already run the bulk of services there anyway. The E-Class trams used for these services are sourced from Southbank Depot and are usually cascaded from Route 30, which is instead either run using the A-Class or just doesn't run at all and is replaced by a diverted Route 12. During larger events, Yarra trams have also been known to source some of these trams from lines like Route 86 by temporarily moving the outer terminus closer to the city, while the outer part of the line is replaced by buses. This reduces the number of trams needed on the line, but this practice obviously has its downsides, and I haven't seen it happen much in recent years. And since writing that part of the script, Yarra Trams has announced a bunch of service changes for the Formula 1 Grand Prix, which has seen a number of routes truncated, some extended, and some replaced by buses, and this is obviously to free up the trams required to run the shuttles. I'm not going to explain the specific changes here because there are a lot, and it's kind of beyond the scope of this video, so here's a map showing the changes. Pause the video if you want to look at it more thoroughly. So that's how the tram fleet is currently distributed as of March 2026. If you enjoyed this, be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Feel free to join the Discord server, link in the description, and thank you all very much for watching. Bye for now.